Welcome to the first of the series of what I'm calling Bend in the River Conversations. Today's conversation is with Charu, who's a doctoral research scholar of philosophy with the Delhi University. And she's going to talk to us about three suggestions to achieve peace and serenity. Why bend in the river? Imagine yourself in a boat floating through a river, and then a bend comes, and you can't see beyond the bend. Another landscape lies ahead, maybe a much more beautiful one than the one you are seeing right now. Over the last few months, all of us have battled with certain amount of uncertainty, ambiguity, even anxiety, and we are approaching a bend in the river. So I decided to hold a series of conversations where we can get practical, on ground suggestions, a sort of framework to get ahead. Now, we recorded this, but unfortunately, the first about 15 minutes of the recording did not take place because of technical reasons. But I'm going to show you the rest of it because it is equally important. Charu, as I said, is a doctoral research scholar. She is also the founder and co-editor of MB Publishing, or Mad Buddha's publishing house. She's a polyglot. She knows Hindi. She's fluent in English and Spanish. And since she's got a lot of time on her hands, she's also learning Japanese and Korean. You'll find this conversation very fascinating because it brings you actionable, doable framework from philosophy, which we normally consider as fuzzy and ethereal. So before I take you to about 15 minutes into the conversation, where Charu is explaining three things: dhyan or meditation, swadhyay or reading, and sajjan sangata or coexisting with good people or like-minded people. She's halfway into meditation, and you will be able to join all the dots and connect the thread. So before I go, my name is Neeraj Bali. I'm an army veteran, and I'm now the founder and CEO of LeadScape Advisors, which is a consultancy focused on disruption, organizational culture, leadership, whether it is mentoring, coaching, life coaching, and also occupational health and security safety audits of companies. That's who I am. If anyone wishes to volunteer for a conversation like that, someone who has a positive recommendation, some usable recommendations for the viewers, it doesn't matter whether you're an expert or not, please go to my website, which you will see at the end of the webinar, www.leadscape.in. There is a form at the end of the website. Get in touch, and if you mutually agree, I'd be very happy to host you. Now, enjoy the rest of the webinar.
You also don't need to sit for a certain number of hours at a stretch to make you an official meditator. So I would suggest start with 30 minutes, because that's the that's the amount of time that it takes us to kind of settle down with our thoughts and start becoming one with our breath. Because if you try for 5 minutes and it doesn't work, you can't say that you really tried, have you? So just try for 30 minutes. In fact, when I tried, I was giving the 40-day challenge. It was the Chalisa challenge, essentially. Chalisa here being non-religious. So Chalisa just means 40 days. So, for 40 days, meditate for 40 minutes every day. And then you see the difference. See if on the 41st day, it comes to you naturally or not. So that is something maybe I can challenge all the viewers here. For 40 days, try and meditate for 40 minutes each day. Just put on what the thing I like to do best is, even if not, I just put a music on YouTube and I set a timer for 40 minutes. So till the time the music is playing, I have to keep my eyes shut. So that's kind of, exercise and self-discipline as well. Do not open your eyes till the music stops. That's the time you'll be meditating.
So that's a brilliantly simple explanation of meditation that I've ever heard. I am exceptionally grateful that you didn't talk about crossing legs and sitting on the floor, because as those who know me, that's not something I would have achieved in most of my life, and I'm definitely not going to start now. There are some people here in the crowd today in the audience who are very fit, like my brother Raguraj Singh, who can do this, but people like me, I just can't. But I'm glad all I have to do is lock my ankles and lock my hands, and that is good enough. Before I go any further, I must read out the comments to you. When you said when you sleep, even that is an unconscious sort of meditation, you got a thumbs up from Sojanya, who's also said brain images have been taken, which shows brain wiring changes with meditation. Also, Renu said meditation is the nutrition for the mind to connect with oneself. Of course, that's a great way to describe. And Geetika said meditation and yoga should be the way of life. I've been practicing, and yes, it has helped me connect with my inner self. Great. I'm going to ask you, and of course, Rajania said you can sit in a chair and do it. You may like to think about my next question, which I'm going to ask, which is, can I do it in a car? I mean, let's say I'm going to the office and I'm taking an hour. Of course, the days of the cars are now just a glimmer in our of nostalgia for us. But let's say I'm traveling an hour. Can I do meditation in the car? And while you are getting ready to answer that question, I must make a comment of my own, and that is, physics, which was not necessarily my strong suit, tells us that if we have a long enough liver and we place the fulcrum at the right place, we can probably lift the entire earth. The long length of the liver is the potential you have, of all of us have. And the fulcrum is the right mindset, the right set point where your inner being must be, which gives you the leverage to do great things. And when I was listening to you, I was just reminded of that maybe unrelated example, that if you get your mindset right, if you are centered well, if you are calm inside by doing all that you've said, maybe you should be able to, if not lift the earth, but probably lift quite a lot. Okay, so now I'm not talking about my driving the car and doing meditation. If I'm fortunate enough to be sitting in the rear seat and I'm thinking about strange things, now tell me, can I meditate?
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned that you're not driving the car, because that's dangerous, and I do not like advocate that. Already, there's a lot of chaos on the road as it is.
I never mix meditation and driving the car. I only drink and drive. Okay, go on. Yeah.
I don't know which is worse, actually. So yeah, if you're in the back seat, or if you're in the passenger seat, please, if you don't get motion sickness, you can close your eyes and you can meditate. Like I said, you can do it anywhere, anytime. So being in a car, I meditate when I'm in the metro all the time. So if, as long as you can kind of shut off from the external environment, maybe have some noise cancellation headphones or something, because there's no point in forcing yourself to meditate. I have to make this point so clear. And there's no shan of any sort in being a meditator when you're just closing your eyes, but your mind is still, working. So there's no point in showing off anything to anyone here. So if you feel like you can do it in the metro, please do it in the metro. I've done it in the metro sometimes, and people have come and asked me about it later. And it's been so wonderful to share with people what I had been doing and why I'm meditating, and why do young people need to meditate? Like, isn't it like old people who should be meditating and doing kirtans and bhajans? And then I have to explain, okay, all of these are different. So yeah, if you're in the car, please meditate if you can. If you're in the passenger seat, please don't.
All right. No, if you're in the passenger
It's a
seat,
driver's seat.
in the
Right.
driver's seat, yeah, like I said, you should only mix a couple of other things, which takes us to the second point, which is, I'm curious, how does Swadhyay or reading books fit into this whole thing? I have read books, all right. It necessarily doesn't make you wise. It makes you more knowledgeable. If books made you wise, Ernest Hemingway wouldn't go and shoot himself. So, having said that, I have read plenty of books. I'm not saying this as a mark of appreciation of myself. This is who I am. How does that help? How does Swadhyay help? And how should one go about it? What should you read anyway? Yeah.
Great. This is a lovely question. First of all, I'll split the word Swadhyaya into its roots so that people understand how Swadhyaya is even related to reading books. Swa means self, and Adhyay means the study. So essentially, Swadhyay means study of the self through reading the right kind of books. What are the right kind of books? The right kind of books are books that inspire, the books that motivate, the books that bring us closer to ourselves. So, the idea that literature, that in books can make us stronger emotionally and even physically for that matter, goes back to Plato. Plato said that, the muses gave us the arts not for mindless pleasure, but as an aid to bringing our soul circuit, when it has gone out of tune, into order and harmony with itself. Plato was talking about disruption, he was talking about a bend in the river all these centuries back. So essentially, that is what books do, in times of happiness, in times of pain, in times of confusion. I have always found myself turning to books because it's always better. A little reading is better than no reading at all. It's a little information is better than no information at all. We have such an onslaught of stimulus, like I said, from the media, from newspapers, from magazines, from there's so much happening on YouTube, social media. So there's a WhatsApp university now. So, everyone's graduated from WhatsApp university by now in these 3 months. So there's so much stimulus coming all the time. So how do you kind of make sense of all of that, given in the light of, the current political situation or the current socio-economic situation, the kind of protests that are happening around the world, the kind of pandemic that we are facing? So you go back and read from credible sources, and you kind of uh, try and do a study of the self through what you're reading. You get closer to yourself as and when you're reading. I mean, think about it. Like when the COVID happened, wasn't it the Ramayana and the Mahabharata that people all over India kind of bonded over? Granted, it was a TV series, but like, hasn't that come from books first and foremost? Aren't Ramayana and Mahabharata books in their essence? So yeah, books have always been a tools of storytelling. And as long as people are there, as long as stories are there, we can learn from each other, and that is what books help us do. They help us learn from each other, from each other's experiences. The most wonderful thing about it is I may not have lived in the same time as Plato, but I can read what he wanted me to what he wanted the world to know about. So it's a
Okay.
conversation, it's a dynamic conversation happening throughout centuries.
Which sort of brings me to a question. Uh, First of all, my very dear friend Ulas Bodhankar has written a comment which I suppose would resonate with all the Faucis. He's written, "Isn't ignorance bliss?" Well, dear Ulas, I want to quote something to you. A man who does not read has no advantage over a man who cannot read. All right, so that is where the ignorance goes. But having said that, there are a couple of things that rattle in my head about reading. I know the answers partly, but I still would want to ask. One is, why read? Why not watch television? Reading a book is one thing, and then when you look at you're looking at Netflix, you're looking at documentaries, Amazon Prime, you're looking at hot stuff. You got a whole lot of stuff coming at you, which is presenting stuff in such a graphic manner with much more clarity. It leaves nothing to imagination. All right. So why this? Why take the trouble of reading a book? Yeah.
This is actually a question I would have expected from a younger audience, like the generation today. This is what they are leaning towards,
Did somebody give you the impression I'm not among the younger audience? All right.
No, no, no.
Go on. Go on.
My bad, my bad. So, yeah, why books? Why not Netflix? If you've ever read any book that is turned into a movie, have you ever heard this from any source? The book was better than the movie. So why is it that people always kind of feel that generally the books on which the movies are based are better than the movies? It's because yes, the movies may present the information in kind of an engaging manner. You have the music, you have the lights, you have these animations, graphics, fancy things happening. But the way a book can describe things, it's much more descriptive. And you can take your time with the book. You can relish each sentence as you're reading it. You can savor each sentence as you're reading it. You can really take your time. And reading a book is it's a proactive kind of engagement rather than just sitting passively and watching TV. Because when you're watching TV, you might not even like the images are flashing by, and sometimes at the end of the episode, you don't even like 20 minutes, 30 minutes have passed, and you didn't even realize things just kept happening, and you were sitting and you're sometimes eating your food as you're watching TV, talking to somebody else, you're on your phone. When you're reading a book, you're just reading a book, right? So it's a very personal engagement, it's a very proactive engagement, and it's a very descriptive engagement. So for that, I personally would place books over TV.
All right. So I'm going to agree with you, and I'm
Can I
going to.
add here to what you are saying? Why
Can
read books?
so Jenny, can we just save it for the end?
Yeah, no, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the fact of the matter is that the books are certainly an investment of your attention and your time far more than they are when you're watching a television series, when you're looking at a screen. You're actually invested in knowing what is written there. Uh, when you're looking at the television, you can look away. You can hear and still make some sense. Okay, especially if you're watching a Hindi serial, you don't even have to look. You can make all sense of what is going on. You know what the mother-in-law is going to say. So, therefore, if you want to imbibe something really, you need to be pouring down on a page, and that sort of gives you a far more sense of achievement. I would modify one statement of yours, though, without disagreeing with you, and that is, uh, sometimes people say a book is better than a movie, but sometimes people also say sometimes the movie is better than a book. All right, it doesn't happen all the time. I agree with you, but rarely. I have a different explanation to it. First of all, I completely agree with what you said. Books are better than movies. The reason also is that these are two different genres. If there was a piece of music which was made based on a painting, you can't compare. So when you make comparison of this nature, it is fallacious by intrinsically fallacious. You cannot compare these two different things, right? There are two different streams of thoughts and all that. I'm going to ask you one more question, and in the end, I promise, Virginia, you will be the first one to speak. Now the question is, or maybe I can just say it. It's not much of a question. I was in the Pune Literary Fest, a city, one of my favorite cities, from where a couple of my friends, Venki Rao and Senyukta, I can see, who belong to. So during that, somebody asked me a question. He said, I read books, but then I forget about them. I look back and say, I read P.G. Wodehouse, it was a funny book. But for the life of me, I don't remember what was really written in that book. So what's the point? You're reading, but you're not really remembering anything. How does it work? I pointed out to him my own experience. Sure, even when I look back at the books I read, sometimes I say, what was he saying? But the fact is, every book changes you. It leaves a little residue in you. When I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends in 1975, it said, a man's name is the most important sound to him. It just hasn't left my being after I read that. And you make an effort to then remember people's names, right? Okay, great. Which brings us to the third prong, which I think is the hardest for me to understand. Sajjan Sangita. I hope I'm saying it right. Now, this has really intrigued me because your proposition is that we need to bond with like-minded people. First of all, what does it mean? And secondly, what if you are locked in a situation where you really don't have like-minded people, especially if you're in a COVID and you are stuck with two other beings, which is not the situation in my life, by the way. Let me quickly hasten to add. What then? Or you're in an office for that matter. You're in a toxic situation. What do you do? So first of all, what does it mean? And then how do you deal with a situation where you don't have like-minded people? It's all yours.
Right. What does it mean? I can maybe just give a one sentence answer to it. It means exactly what we're doing right now through this webinar. We are, a like-minded group of people have all joined in voluntarily this Sunday morning to spend an hour of their time, with us. And we are all engaging in a conversation that is somehow meaningful to each of us in our own way. So this is exactly what I mean by Sajjan Sangatya, coming from the word Sangha. Sajjan, of course, we are all Sajjan Jans who have joined us today. Sajjan Sangatya is essentially, just like I said, connecting with like-minded people, because I cannot overemphasize the importance of community. as I think all of us have realized being in the lockdown, I think all of us have realized that social aspects, even the deepest of introverts have realized that social aspect in themselves. And like I was mentioning when you kind of, went offline for a second there, we live in this beautiful, beautiful age of internet. Like I said, imagine like this Spanish influenza happening or something, this pandemic even happening a few centuries back there, and people really would have been in a lockdown. But here, being in a lockdown, being locked with my own family members, I'm still able to connect to my friends, and I'm able to develop that community. So we live in the age of internet, so I think we really have no excuses there.
All right. So wonderful. So, and of course, Renu said while you were speaking that it also first you got to love your own company, and then of course you start obviously loving and connecting with others. Which reminded me of this is back in 2009, I think. Uh, I was in Durban, and we were watching a show of dolphins in the water world, and something struck me. I asked my wife. I said, "Do you know? Have you ever wondered why dolphins are so lovable?" And she started thinking about it, and I said, "I'll tell you why. It's not because they're the most beautiful creatures in the sea. There are equally graceful fish who swim around, some very brilliant fish. The reason why dolphins are lovable is because they make an effort to be lovable. Eventually, you got to be lovable yourself. The question that you need to ask yourself is, am I fun? Am I fun to be with? Before you keep looking at the world and saying, because the locus of your happiness in the end, we all know, lies inside us. So you've got to get yourself right before you go any further. All right. Wonderful answer. I think what you said is that you don't have to just focus on your immediate people. Hopefully, they are good enough, nice enough. But there are many parts of our soul that need to be attended to, and they come from other people. If that wasn't the case, men wouldn't go to bar and sit with other men, or women wouldn't love pets, or shopping or whatever, right? So that's a great point. I think this pretty much has brought me to the last question. But I'm first going to give chance to Sojanya, and then let's see if something comes out of that for us to discuss. Sojanya, you can unmute. Have a go.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for giving me the opportunity. And I loved Charu's explanation and description of whatever questions you have asked. Sir, you actually, you only said the answer. Like you were saying that these two are two different mediums. That reading a book is a different medium and TV is audiovisual. That is a different medium. But one more thing I wanted to add is book you can choose. Even the TV, you can say Netflix and all also you can choose. But what it does is it is trying to force everything what it thinks is right onto us. Book we can imagine and we can visualize and I can interpret it in my own way.
All right.
Did I make
Yes,
sense?
yes. It made
If
eminent sense. Yeah.
if I can just add, Neeraj,
Yeah.
Dr. Saujanya is a trained. She has a background in philosophy, and she's a certified practicing psychological counselor as well as philosophical counselor. So all her background is coming into play.
Okay. I promised I'll answer. I'll at least throw everyone's questions onto the board. It's a question that doesn't really relate to the three things you said today, but it's an important question, so I'll just say it. Anyone can answer, but I'll start with you, Charu. Geetika said the youth today is all mad about gymming. They put on muscle by adding protein supplements to their diet. How can they be motivated not to play with their health? I don't know whether you are in this field or somebody else can be in this field. Maybe, I don't know if Jan Leke can answer this question. He's a great sportsman, or somebody else can answer it. But anyone who wants to have a go at it, please unmute and say.
So I'll just add my 2 cents here. If you look at, if you read about any sportsman across the ages, or if you look at any interview that they have or any bite that they've given, they first talk about the muscle which needs to be developed before anything else, and that's this muscle. So they first and foremost talk about the mindset which has to be set on the game, which has to be set on the practice, and then they move forward. Like Usain Bolt before any race, this is the muscle that he first and foremost develops, right? And then he starts running, and then he starts developing his other muscles. So of course, free will comes into play here. So if anybody in your family is kind of wants to go down this path of gymming, you can't really force them to stop. I would advise you not to force them to stop. Don't be judgmental about anything, but yes, also give them kind of space and ask them to be informed about their decisions, and ask them to really think about why they want to do it, just because they want to follow a fad, or if they really think that it may benefit them, because some people actually do benefit from this. Some people have to gain on weight, some people are bulimic, not talking about sports persons, of course. So some people do need proteins and extra supplements in their diets, maybe. But that may not be the case for everybody. So I would refrain from making general sweeping statements. But yes, I feel this is the muscle you need to develop first and foremost.
I'm
Well,
surprised
I would
people.
just,
Yeah, Jalike.
Neeraj, I would just like to add, hi,
Yes.
morning everyone. First is that today's youth, let me tell you, is very knowledgeable. So let's not go by the impression that they'll be doing wrong things. Second, it is very important, even if somebody, suppose my child or my grandson, anybody is wanting to pursue that, it is the responsibility of the people who are knowledgeable to guide them properly, because it can cause immense harm if more than required exercise or weights are done by somebody. It can cripple him for life. So it's very important that we throw open both the pros and cons of what they are doing and guide them anywhere that we, for example, I am in a university, more than 1100 students on campus, and I find a lot of them trying to go to the gym. So I have a regime through which we provide them guidance. First, ask them as to what is their purpose, as you're trying to tell us, Charu, and then guide them with the people who are old gymmers as to what path should you follow. There are people as lanky as 52 kgs, and there are people as thick as or as heavy as 100 kgs who are in the gym. So they all require different kind of processes to be followed to develop various kind of strengths and possibilities. So that is what I think is the line that we should follow.
Thank you so much, sir. Though I must say that when you said 100 kgs, you didn't have to look in my direction. I have never had to need proteins to put on weight. That's and anyway, that's on a lighter note.
Maybe,
But
so maybe I can add.
Yeah, please go on.
If I may.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
okay, I've given 3 practical suggestions right now. Let's see how they fit into this question. Like General also mentioned here, General Deke Singh. So, Sajjan Sangatya. You have to kind of find the like-minded people. You have to find that community of the people with the right mindsets, with the right guidance, with the right group of friends, because your company can make or break you. So find the right group of friends who can, or guidance or guides, coaches who can help you. Swadhyay, read, research about any kind of supplement that you're going to take. And then meditate, center yourself, balance yourself, ask yourself, is this really for me? If yes, go back to Sajjan Sangatya, go back to Swadhyay, read more, get the right guidance from the right people, and then move ahead with it. If not, drop it.
Thank you for connecting this. My another dear friend Venki says Charu and Janleke are absolutely right. We cannot generalize saying that today's generation has focused only on gymming. Today's youth are more wiser than perhaps what I was. Venki, even they're wiser than what I was, but that's simple. That's very easy to be at that age during during my time. Yeah, so that's right. They are wiser, and people like Jan Leke should know. By the way, he's the CEO of NIIT Nimrana. So all he has done for years is to deal with young people very successfully. So he would know the answer. So yes.
Can I add something here?
Yes, Urvashi, please go on.
I think, like General Negi said, these kids, the youth today is very well informed. But where we, as the older generation, not showing them the right path is as to we are not able to answer their questions. They are very well informed. They have a lot of questions. And what is leading them to just gymming crazily is not really for the sake of gymming or just for the body. It's their emotional, it's their in curiosity about things that's not been settled, and they're finding their way. How do I say? They are finding their refuge in gymming because it's physical and it's they get tired and they can forget about the questions which they are not answered to, is leading to this horde community of just following everybody around and coming under peer pressure. So they need to be probably answered for what they're seeking
All right,
is.
thank you, Rishi. Yeah, of course, the point is not, I'm sure everyone understands, and you've said this so yourself, the point is not that gymming is bad. The point is taking supplements which can ruin you. That is the point. And of course, my experiences with having raised two youngsters is that children not don't necessarily always listen to what you're saying. Sometimes they purely do what you're doing, and sometimes it takes the whole thought process has to take its own trajectory for a child to grow up and understand as to what is right, what is wrong. So you've got to actually give a certain amount of confidence in the child's ability to judge beyond, of course, before it goes too bad. That okay. Anyone else who has a question?
Neeraj, I just want to add two things.
Yes, sir.
First is that, whenever we interact with a youth, even now, despite all the knowledge, we try to impose whatever we thought was correct or is correct. The simple method that I follow with my students here, that you are in a situation, you come to me, listen out to me, either I convince you or I allow you to do what you are doing. So I found this method to be very successful. And 99 out of 100, I've been able to convince them thinking as a youth, not thinking at my age. That is very important.
Thank you, sir. Uh, there is a technique in the coaching which says ask, don't tell. Sometimes asking the right question also leads to the right answers in the mind of the person you're asking. Why are you doing this? Do you know the problems? Do you know the dangers, etc., etc.? I'm not saying this will solve everything, but that could be. Anyone else who is to?
Sir, this is Venki here. I just need to ask a question to Charu.
Yeah, sure.
Charu, right at the beginning you said, philosophy is not a subject just taught in our schools. What can be done and how it can be done to impart philosophy into our education? Because I think that's from where our society is going to learn, adapt, and then move forward.
Right. Thank you so much for your question, sir. This is something that scholars across the board, all over the world, are trying to figure out.
I'm talking context, our Indian education. How do we change it? Can we approach AICT? Can we approach NCRT? How do we do it? We all talk about it.
So, I mean, in some sense, like we had a value education subject. I think now it's become education for values. So that subject kind of gave children an understanding of what ethics is, a very basic understanding. Gave children knowledge about moral values. My school, I can give the example of my school. At that time, my school is actually where I learned this Anapanasati meditation, because our school had mandatory meditation for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon. So at that time, it was pure torture for me because I was not told why we are doing this. All I knew as a child was I have to sit and close my eyes and I have to be silent for 15 minutes in the morning and the afternoon. And it was just pure torture for me. But now, when I went to college and then when I started reading about the importance of meditation, and then I went back to that practice, which had somewhere left that seed in me. So, like I said, Dhyan is our own export. So why aren't we and it's a secular practice. So why aren't we, encouraging that in schools? So maybe that is a practical way in which philosophy can be included. Yoga, of course, a lot of schools all over India are already offering yoga knowledge, even though it only falls under the asanas and the Ashtanga yoga practice. But these are a few ways. Maybe we can have certain, rather than maybe for, actually the problem is there's so much focus on, your PCM subjects or your commerce subjects in 11th and 12th, that children at that time, when they actually have the kind of cognitive capacities to understand a little bit of what philosophy is, they don't have the time in their school syllabus to entertain all of that. Like, I remember all of our music period, our library periods, our PT periods used to be taken by our maths teachers, physics teachers, or chemistry teachers, because the syllabus would not have been finished from these other subjects. So all these subjects which kind of helped us turn inwards were kind of cut from the curriculum. So I think first and foremost, that mentality has to change, because even if we introduce something in the curriculum, if at the teachers level they still feel like PCM is more important, or like your economics and the computer science, these are the subjects that are more important. These subjects, unke period wo teachers lete rahenge. So the change has to come at a mental level first. I believe training first has to be given to the teachers, which is already being happening. I myself am part of a group, and I give lectures to CBSE teachers across Delhi and NCR on understanding ethics and integrity from a philosophical perspective. So it's already begun. I'm really hopeful that it will expand.
Yeah. So when I was in rural Maharashtra, I had the occasion to deal with two stakeholders of education. One was the industry, and the other was the AICTE, which Venki mentioned. Now, the fact of the matter is that when you start asking people as to why our children don't even get employability, why they're not employable, you get two answers. One of them, of course, is that our syllabi are not what is really required outside. Okay, they're different requirements. The world has moved on. We are still teaching the same things. But the second answer is more curious, because our children just lack the soft skills. They're not even able to deal with each other. They've not been taught how to deal with forget about opposite gender, even with their own gender. Isn't it curious that with all the time on our hands, we don't find time for this critical part to be introduced in our syllabi? And sometimes I feel that the reason why AICTE and other bodies are chary of doing it is because the teachers and the professors themselves haven't learned those subjects, and it will make some of them redundant. So that's how it is. All right, I think we are coming to the end of it. We have taken more than an hour, so we'll wind up now. This has been very wonderful session. I just want to say that the crux of the matter in many ways was to look at yourself, whether in dhyan or swadhyaya or dealing with other people. So I will just end on this note by saying that we can master this. We can master dealing with other people, but there are, like I said, first of all, you got to become lovable yourself. Secondly, there's a great book called How to Think by Alan Jacob. He said, when we don't know enough, we tend to substitute emotion for thought. So you can see this on Twitter all the time. You can see this on social media. Even in our human interaction, we don't know enough about the other person. We don't know enough about ourselves, and we tend to substitute emotion for thought. Thank you very much to everyone who was here. This was really wonderful. It's been an outstanding experience for me. I assure you that we'll do it again, possibly once a fortnight. If it doesn't work out, then definitely once a month. All of you will get an invite. And like I said, if somebody wants to volunteer, and he can go to my website or the company website, and he can leave a remark for me, and I'll get back. It's www.leadscape.in. So thank you once again, and God bless, and bye-bye. And thank you, Charu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody.